Scientology is probably the most successful new American religion of the last 100 years. Through a series of courses and auditings, you become more and more aware of your true nature until you reach a kind of godlike status.
To LRH.
Xenu then released the alien souls, which roamed the earth aimlessly in a fog of confusion.
I am going to apologize ahead of time for my face in this interview. I'm kind of not even sorry for it because today's topic is a doozy. You know, I've been studying cults for a while now, and by no means am I an expert, but what draws me to study cults is the mind control behind them. There are things that every Christian should regularly be doing. Reading our Bible, praying regularly, going to church, being involved with the church and in your community, doing regular outreach, just the things that every Christian should be doing. But I'm going to argue that there are two more things that I really believe that every Christian should be doing, and that is studying cults and critical thinking. Because, as you will see in this conversation, my face just can't face with what my friend Lindsay is telling me about the religion of Scientology. It's not a cult that I have actually researched very deeply outside of a South Park episode, which we will actually get into in this interview. If you don't know who Lindsay Meldenwalt is, I think I said her last name correctly. Did I say her last name correctly? Hold on. Yes, Lindsay Meldenwalt. She's not just brilliant, in my opinion. She's very personable, very kind, and one of those people that you just want to have coffee with often. She's with Mama Bear Apologetics, which is a separate ministry that does a lot of wonderful apologetic work, which I will leave a link in the description for you to check out that ministry. Me and Lindsay met at a recent conference that we were both speakers at, and I absolutely loved her. We hit it off right away. And in one of our many conversations, somehow the topic of Scientology got brought up, and I was fascinated with how much she knew, like in-depth detail about this religion, why it functions the way it does, how it got started. And I was immediately fascinated and wanted to interview her. This is more than just talking about Scientology and the odd beliefs that the religion has. It's about understanding why people are attracted to that kind of stuff to begin with and what we can do about it. This is why I say that it's so important to understand cults and mind control and critical thinking, because if we can understand how a religion like Scientology even exists and how it exists, then we will be very effective in reaching others for the gospel, but also initiating other people to critically think about what they believe and why they believe it, including ourselves. We easily could have gone for a few hours talking about this religion. I was genuinely interested to learn more and hear more about what she had to say. That's why there's going to be a lot more resources in the description for you to check out. She does give some resources at the end of the interview. Be sure to check out Lindsay and her stuff. She's one of those people that I just think needs to have a bigger platform than mine. She's honestly just genuinely likable and highly intelligent. So be sure to check her out, and I hope that you enjoy this interview. Hey everybody, I have a very special guest on today. Hold on real quick. How do you pronounce your last name?
Meldenwalt.
Oh, Meldenwalt, the way it looks. Great.
That's exactly how it looks.
Hi everybody, I have a very special guest on today, my friend Lindsay Meldenwalt. She's going to talk about a topic that I've never covered on my channel before, and I've never actually researched. Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on today.
Super awesome to be here.
Yeah, so this actually is a surprising side wheelhouse that you have, but this isn't your main cup of tea. What you do is very different, hence why it was surprising to me and so interesting to me. But why don't you tell my viewers about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I do a lot of things, more things than I think my husband would like me to be doing, but here we are. I teach at a local Christian liberal arts college, and that's pretty awesome. I teach writing and public speaking at the college. I also teach a journalism class, and that's kind of my day job. The other thing I do is I work at Mama Bear Apologetics. I am currently the director of operations there. I've been with Mama Bear since 2018. And what we do at Mama Bear is we equip moms so they can equip their kids. So we give them a ton of information about a lot of things regarding apologetics, but also faith and sexuality and other things. And hopefully the moms will get information that they can share with their kids when their kids come home with those really hard questions from school or even church sometimes. And then I'm also a writer. I have written a book called Bridge Building Apologetics.
Go get it. I see it in the back.
I'm going to get it because
Yeah,
it's
go
so
get
pretty. It's
I
next to
love
my
the
little
cover.
gnome. So you have to see the gnome too because she's like hanging out. I'm a big fan of gnomes. But yeah, so she's pretty. She's a very pretty cover.
She is pretty.
But yeah, so this is a book about how to get along even if you disagree, which the timing of it, I didn't plan for it to come out during a political season or anything like that. It came out in May. But it is, if you have disagreements about politics or religion or anything like that, this is the kind of book that will be really practical for you. As far as worldview goes, I've been studying world religions like on the side since I was 16 or 17. I got really interested in secret societies. I had this dream of maybe going to an Ivy League and getting recruited by a secret society. I know
Just
you weren't
to see what it's
expecting
like.
this. You're learning more and more about me. Didn't end up going Ivy League, but that's okay. I didn't also join a secret society. I did join a sorority, which is maybe kind of the same thing. And continued to study world religion throughout college. As I made friends in different world religions, I studied what they believed. I own something like 11 or 12 Book of Mormons because I really done a deep dive on LDS. I've done a deep dive on Jehovah's Witnesses. There've just been several religions that I'm like, oh, I'm going to focus on that for the next year. And Scientology sort of ended up in that world.
All right, let's start at the beginning. So when people hear Scientology, sometimes they'll think of, Christian Science or something that sounds similar. Christian Science is something very different. That's actually my wheelhouse. That's more of a New Thought cult. Scientology is something very different. Let's just start there with defining it.
Whoa. Okay, so Scientology is a religion that was born out of the mind of someone named L. Ron Hubbard. And he was he's mostly known for, well, now he's known for Scientology, but back in the day, in the 50s, he was known for being a science fiction writer. So he wrote a lot of science fiction and made quite a bit of money that way. He actually holds a Guinness World Record for writing the most number of books ever. He's written more than 1,000 books. Yeah, no, it's a true fact. So you can look him up and he's there. So he lived in the 1950s. Well, he's older than that, but somewhere around 1950, he wrote a little book called Dianetics. And Dianetics was a book about the mind and helping you overcome problems in your life and living your best life now is basically what the book was about. And it was an immediate bestseller. Like, I need to review the numbers, but it was like a ridiculous amount. In the first 3 months, he sold 55,000 copies. So to put this into context, they didn't have Amazon back then. It wasn't like people were just putting it in their cart and hitting get now. They were going to bookstores and they were buying this book, and on average about 4,000 a week of this book. And he was invited to be a speaker, and he was doing demonstrations with people about their mind. And he made some pretty, I would call them wild claims about what Dianetics would do for a person. And he claimed that one of the benefits was that it could give a person great recall, which if you don't have good memory, this is an excellent strategy, right? So he would offer these demonstrations after the book came out. And it was pretty obvious very quickly that maybe everything wasn't as he claimed, because people weren't getting immediate recall on the things he was teaching them. And so people started looking into his background, like, oh, maybe he's not who we think he is. So when we look at his background, then we go backwards a little bit. And he's a kid from Nebraska, raised mostly in Montana. And he actually went to George Washington University for a little while. He got kicked out because he didn't pass any of his classes. But he was majoring in engineering. And during his 20s, he wrote science fiction, and then he joined the Marines. No, the Navy. He joined the Navy. And that did not go well. He he wasn't very good at his job. He fired missiles on things that weren't supposed to have missiles fired on them. He made mistakes about things that were in the water that weren't actually, in the water. He just made some really bad choices in the Navy, and eventually he was accused of sabotage, and he left the Navy. He claimed that he had sustained certain injuries. He made all these claims about his life in the Navy. And why viewers need to know this is because Scientologists believe the L. Ron Hubbard version of things. But if we look at historical documents, like there's hundreds of papers or records of his time in the Navy, and they don't support anything he says about his experiences in the Navy. This is why truth is so important. And he doesn't pass the truth test, I guess. So if we go back to Dianetics then, wildly popular. And he had once told his wife that the way to make money was to start a religion. And that's a real quote. I've done the research on this because I was like, surely he did not say that. But there's pretty reliable documents and sources that say that he definitely did say that to his wife. And
yeah, tell that to Jesus.
Right? Yeah, no, he made so much money.
And the disciples,
Jesus.
anyway.
Yeah, and they lived their best lives, super wealthy. But yeah, so he started Scientology in 1954. The Church of Scientology was born. And the reason why he said that it was going to be a moneymaker was because tax exemption. That was really the goal. He was going to have to pay taxes. He had already been in trouble for avoiding the tax man in his life, and starting a religion was going to be a way around that. So that's the basics of how Scientology was born. I'm going to give a break to see if you want to have a specific question about any of that.
Well, you're good at this.
There's a lot there.
Oh yeah, you can see my brain. Yeah, I have so many questions already. So he's a scam artist, it sounds like.
Yes.
He sounds like he just fits the mold with every person who's just kind of started a religion.
We could name them, right? We could name them.
Yeah, and this is why. And I'm appealing to the people that are watching this that might be in a group that doesn't allow you to look at the founder critically. Yes. And you probably know exactly who you are. I don't know. But if you're not allowed to do that, chances are you should do that. Like, that's exactly what you should do. Because there's reasons why they don't want you to see it. That's a whole other thing. But, all right, yes, I have questions. So this was one thing you and I were talking about was the tax exemption. Because I was thinking, why would he do that? Why would he go through all this trouble? What's his motive? So he had a motive. He had a personality for it, it sounds like. Now, here's my next question. How did he come up with the beliefs? Because I am not over here saying that this is the greatest show in the world, or am I endorsing it in any way? But South Park has had some...
Oh, it's so accurate. That episode is... I've seen 2 episodes of South Park.
Yeah, and the one on the Mormonism too. The Mormonism one is so spot on as well.
It all began 75 million years ago.
Xenu thought his galaxy was overpopulated.
And so he rounded up countless aliens from all different planets. The frozen alien bodies were loaded onto Xenu's galactic cruisers, which looked like DC-8s, except with rocket engines.
What world are we living in where we go to South Park to get the accurate information? Tell me about the beliefs. Tell me about the celebrity endorsements, why that is such a huge correlation. Tell me all the things.
So some people's first exposure to Scientology might have been Tom Cruise jumping on a couch on Oprah.
He once told 17 magazine, yes! You're here?
Back in the early 2000s, I think.
I remember. When he was in love with Katie Cat.
When he was in love with Katie Holmes. And that was kind of everybody's first exposure. And then he had an interview with Matt Lauer on the Today Show about postpartum depression. And he was critical of an actress who had received some therapy after having a child, and said that he said some things that were negative about psychiatry and psychology, which led some people down this path of what is going on in this religion. So let's take a look at where this came from. Remember, L. Ron Hubbard wrote science fiction. Okay, this is his background. This is what he's good at. He was very good at writing science fiction. He came up with this idea of an intergalactic leader named Xenu. Okay, now we're going to lose listeners. Don't lose listeners. Stick with me, guys. So they really believe this. And this is where on South Park it says, no, Scientologists really do believe this. They actually believe this. This is an actual belief. What I'm about to say, it's an actual belief. Okay, so we've got Xenu, and it's 75 million years ago on a planet similar to Earth. L. Ron Hubbard, I just saw a video. I rewatched a video of him talking about this. And he said people were walking around like we do now. Well, it was the 1950s, like they did in the 1950s with cars and similar clothes. And it was similar to Earth. Well, this intergalactic dictator of the Galactic Confederacy named Xenu heard that they were going to try to overthrow him. And so he got nervous. So he called these people in. He called these people in, billions of people, and froze them with some sort of drug, and then put them on planes that looked like DC-10s and flew them to what is Earth. It wasn't called Earth, but Earth. He flew them to Earth and dropped them into the volcanoes on Earth, right? Then he dropped nuclear bombs in those volcanoes and blew up all the people. Tracking? Yes? Got it?
I'm tracking.
Okay.
I'm tracking.
Then, okay, then their souls, or what Scientologists call thetans or thetans, depending on who you're talking to,
Okay.
escaped, and they were recaptured by Xenu, and they were forced to watch television. And 3D television, which is a big deal in the 1950s. So they were forced to watch 3D movies about all sorts of things and beliefs. And then they were just left to their own devices on Earth. And Xenu went back. He was actually eventually captured, and he's being held in prison right now. And the word on the street is that there's no way he's going to escape, but who knows? Maybe one day it will happen. So these thetans, or thetans that are left on Earth, as creation happens and people become people, and they do have a creation story. It's kind of unclear and hard to find, so don't ask me that question. But they do have a creation story, and they are inhabited by these body thetans, these souls. They stick to the bodies, and then the bodies have what are called engrams. These are not the engrams that are the term that is used in psychology. So don't confuse that. Engrams are your memories of bad trauma. Okay, so that's an engram.
Okay.
The goal of Scientology then is to clear a person of those engrams. Their goal is to reach the status of clear. So sometimes you'll hear them talk about, oh, we need to clear the planet. That's one of their common phrases. Like if you go to their website, our goal is to clear the planet. Yes, they want to clear the planet of all of these engrams and body thetans that are taking over people's lives and causing them to experience pain or do bad things, or all the bad things that happen on Earth are a result of these engrams in people. And so what you do in Scientology is you go through a process called auditing.
Okay.
Auditing, you might have seen this, is if you saw the Scientology episode of South Park, then you kind of know. They take two cans attached to a machine that looks similar to a lie detector. And the person being audited holds the metal cans. Yes. And the auditor asks them questions. How are you feeling today? And then the person will say, good. And they'll ask them again, how are you feeling today? Good. How are you feeling today? And they'll ask that same question until they get to well, actually, I had a bad run-in with my mother-in-law, or I had a bad run-in, somebody cut me off on the street. Oh, tell me more about that. What did you feel when they cut you off while you were driving? Oh, okay. And so they're going to work you through all of your problems in order to clear you. And some of these sessions could take hours and hours and hours. But the idea is that you are getting rid of all of the bad memories and traumas in your life by going through these auditing sessions with, yep, your face is giving it away. What are your questions? Where did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm totally with you. I'm envisioning somebody in the room just doing this. And all I can think about is, how do people even get recruited? Yeah.
I can answer that question.
Sure.
So the primary locations of Scientology are Los Angeles and Clearwater, Florida. So on the two opposite sides of the United States. It's primarily in the United States, but there are some places throughout the world. They also have a ship, so they can be on international waters, not to avoid legal issues at all. But they do have an international ship where you can go for additional training. So Tom Cruise, for example, who is the leading celebrity Scientologist, he has a place in LA, he has a place in Clearwater, and he has received training on the ship. So he's been to all of the places. I've heard that he has a home in Clearwater, and he's got his own private entrance into the Clearwater buildings, so he doesn't have to interact with anybody else while he's there receiving auditing or training. They get you by offering you a personality test. So there, if you go to the Scientology website, it'll say, take a free personality test. I've taken a couple of them.
I've seen this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they tell you the things that are wrong with you based on this personality test. It includes lots of strange questions, like, does it annoy you when people chew too loudly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it sure does. Do you bite your fingernails? I do. You don't. You have beautiful nails. Do you avoid people? It asks a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Hundreds of questions. And at the end, of course, inevitably, you have a problem, and Scientology will tell you that they can fix it for you. So they offer you a course. Hey, it seems like your marriage is really struggling right now. We actually have some courses on marriage. For just $25, we'll allow you to take this class, and it'll really help your marriage and your relationship with your spouse. And you're like, okay, yeah. If you're in real life, if you're in person, you could take that class in person. They do offer some resources online, but really it is, you're going to a Scientology building and getting this training. In LA, they offer acting classes. So if you're an actor or an actress and you're just moving to LA and you're like, I don't know how to even do any of this stuff, they will actually hire in-resident teachers to help new people in LA get gigs and get jobs. That is how they got John Travolta. So John Travolta is also a Scientologist, and he was new on the acting scene and went to the Scientology building in LA and got some classes. And he eventually landed Welcome Back, Kotter. And he attributed all of his successes, Saturday Night Fever and all of those other successes to his training from Scientology, and hasn't left, right? He is still an active Scientologist, and some people theorize there are reasons why he's still in the church, which we can get to in a little bit, but he's another active Scientologist who believes that it has done good work for him, but ultimately for the planet. There are a variety of videos where he's really hyping up the religion and saying Scientology is the only religion that makes people want to feel joy and focuses on making people better humans, to take care of each other. And I'm like, is it the only religion that does
I was
that?
just thinking that. I'm like, no,
I don't think so, sir.
I don't think so, Johnny T.
Yeah. So
yeah.
those auditing sessions really are intended to help you. They have a strict no drug policy. So if you've ever smoked pot or taken a gummy, you aren't allowed to be a Scientologist. They won't even let you enter the process. Yeah, no, it's a strict no drug
But
policy.
why? I don't
Because it messes with your mind. And they
But
want
I mean,
your...
that's just like no. Is it drugs in general?
Yes, they actually have. So there are some drugs they allow, and you will have to go through a program where they will clear your system of the drugs. It's like sweating you out and making you exercise and taking certain, like drinking smoothies and doing all of these things. I have never been through the process, so I can't speak about it personally, but there's lots of places you can find information about what they make you go through if you've taken drugs before, but they're very anti-pot. They also, one of the things I stumbled on was a video of John Travolta talking about birth. So we talked about the thetans, right? Attaching themselves to bodies. And they do this when you're born. So a baby is born and then they attach themselves. Did you see the movie A Quiet Place?
Mm-mm.
It's a scary movie. I haven't actually seen that movie. I saw the prequel that just came out. I was on a plane this weekend and I was like, I think I could watch this movie. And I actually had to fast forward it because I got a little freaked out. But it's a movie about remaining silent or the aliens are going to come and kill you. Scientologists have the same idea. So they force Scientologists to have silent births. Even the mother can't make a noise when a baby is born, because the idea is fewer thetans will attach themselves to the baby if there are no noises that are made.
But
So
the
it is
baby's coming out crying, Lindsay.
Yeah, I know. And then that baby will get treated for that trauma, right? But the idea is that you have to stay quiet. Yes.
Okay.
So what's next?
All right,
Help
so
me.
what's next? I have questions about this. How do you have like this big religion with these kinds of beliefs? And this is why Scientology is labeled a cult. This is what cults do. I mean, this is, you ever want to wonder why somebody believes in something that's like this has a lot to do with the mind control that a cult has. Let's back up for just a second though, because I remembered something you said about Tom Cruise and the way that he reacted on Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you and I were talking and you said, oh no, that's because of Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? I did not understand how the two were connected.
So he's sort of Scientology's hype man. Scientologists recruit celebrities on purpose, right? It's much like influencers trying to bring people in, right? So from the very beginning, L. Ron Hubbard saw the importance of recruiting famous people into the fold so that more people would join. And he would send people out to recruit particular celebrities, and they did. Tom Cruise was married to somebody who was a Scientologist who recruited him into, Mimi Rogers, recruited him into the faith. And she, brought him in and he stayed. And then he was married to Nicole Kidman, who became a Scientologist. Although there were some problems with that marriage because Nicole Kidman's dad was a pretty famous psychologist in Australia, and L. Ron Hubbard is very anti-psychology and psychologists. And so for her to have that relationship with her dad was a big problem for the church. And eventually they were divorced, and she was actually shunned by her kids even. Even to this day, it seems like there's no relationship or contact between Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman's kids, and Nicole Kidman. They are still active in the Church of Scientology and do not talk to their mom. And then we already alluded, we talked about Katie Holmes. There was a process of Tom Cruise wanted a new wife. So according to various testimonies given by people who were involved in this process, they actually, the church found him a wife. They landed on Katie Holmes, and they got married in this beautiful wedding in, I think, Italy. And it was a lavish affair. And eventually they ended up divorced.
Tom Cruise wanted to get divorced, and Scientology chose Katie Holmes. Was she a Scientologist at this time? Like, yeah, parse that out for me.
No, but she was young and influenceable, I guess. She was easily influenced by Tom Cruise. Have you seen Tom Cruise? He is handsome. He's is charismatic. He's short. But he is charismatic. Like, even if you see him in interviews and stuff, he's got this smile that is sort of infectious, maybe a little insane at times, but it wasn't a hard sell for her. She just had to, be friends with people and attend church events. And eventually it was too much, and she did leave. And I don't know what's going on with Tom Cruise's love life these days. I have literally no idea. I don't care to know what's happening with him, but I do know that his daughter Siri just turned 18. So that was like a big milestone for her, I guess.
So I'm still failing to understand the connection between his reaction on Oprah and Katie Holmes. Was it that he just had to put on a show?
So some people have accused him, Melissa, of being like this big showboat guy who's just pretending that he's full of joy and that you can't possibly have all of this energy coming from Scientology. But for him, it might actually be genuine, because he's not a normal human, right? In Scientology terms, he's a celebrity, so he's treated really well by Scientology. He doesn't have to do a lot of the grunt work that regular Scientologists have to do. And they roll out the red carpet, treat him well. He is celebrated on the stage at their events. They have made videos of him. They've honored him with like lifetime achievements. But he claims that Scientology has allowed him to attain this level of joy and satisfaction in life that he couldn't get anywhere else. And then, of course, that interview with Oprah was sort of early on in his relationship with Katie Holmes. And when you're in love with somebody from the very beginning, like, you're very excited about those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so seeing him jump on the couch in context now, right? Like, it's a little bit crazy, but at the time, people just wrote it off as you're super in love with this lady, and will allow it. And then after that, and he had his Matt Lauer interview, then people started asking more questions like, oh, maybe it's not as great as Tom Cruise is saying it is. Let's dig a little bit more deep into the things that he's talking about, or maybe even the things that he's not talking about. What's really happening behind the scenes.
So out of all the religions out there, it seems like the celebrity's religion is Scientology. Is it because of all these connections that in Hollywood that seems to be the avenue in which people join this particular religion? It's like a clubhouse for them?
Yes, but also the sense of belonging that you get by being part of something. When you're young and you move to a new place and you want to find people who care about you, you're very susceptible to things. We see this with cults a lot, right? Where they're looking for somebody who's maybe disconnected from their family, not in a sense that they don't talk to their family, but that they've moved to this place that they don't have anybody they know, they don't have any established friends, and Scientology will jump on that for people who are just walking downtown LA. And they do target young people. If you look at some of the images that they release from the church, you'll notice that most of the people are young. David Miscavige, who we haven't even talked about, but he is the leader of Scientology. He was 25 when he took over. When L. Ron Hubbard died in 1986, David Miscavige took his place. He wasn't supposed to, but he did. And so he was young. And he might be one of the oldest members left in Scientology at this point. And that tells me that it's a very young religion. The other thing is that we have to realize we're not actually talking about that many people who are members of Scientology. They want you to think that there are millions of members. And the reality is that there are probably 40,000 or fewer members of Scientology worldwide, which seems kind of weird. If anybody's ever been to a building or driven by a Church of Scientology in their town, the Denver one is massive. It's right across the street from the baseball stadium, and it's really big. But it doesn't serve that many people because there aren't actually that many Scientologists who live in Denver. There are a few. Their Facebook group is sort of active. I may or may not be a member. But, you know, they are recruiting and they're making themselves look like it's a very active organization. It's similar sort of to North Korea. You know how they have there's all the lights are on at night and they've got facades of grocery stores that are fully stocked and all of that. I sort of think of Scientology in that way too. They've painted this really beautiful picture on the outside of what Scientology can offer you. And once they bring you in and offer you a welcome place, they love bomb you. They tell you how great that you are. They offer you tips on how to make your life better, whatever those tips might be. You're kind of sucked in. And I saw an interview with Paul Haggis, who is a director. He was an actor. He did a lot of things. And he has since been accused of some things, but he was talking about his experiences in Scientology. Even when he realized things weren't that great, he stayed because it was a sense of belonging, but also he benefited from the classes that they gave. He was like, I already put the money in, so I might as well just keep taking the classes. Even after he knew that he wasn't fully on board with Scientology. We see this frequently with cults too, right? It's not that easy to leave sometimes, not because you don't want to leave, but because you like it there. There's something about it that's keeping you there. Maybe it's a friendship that you have, or even your spouse, whatever it might be, that's keeping you there, even if you disagree with what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a similar sentiment that I heard from a LDS, from a Mormon, who, it was an article that they wrote or something like that. I remember reading it. I'm not sure exactly where it was. Maybe it was on a YouTube video. I'm not sure. But it was reasons why to stay in the church, but out of the religion. He's like, yeah, I realize the church is not true. It's not true. Here's the facts. It's demonstrable. What are we going to do? You know, this group of other Mormons who know the church is not true. But he's like, but here's why you should stay in the church. And everything you just said applied to what he said. He's like, yeah, they have great family values, great community, you know, all these really good secular reasons basically to stay in the community, even though you know the religion is false. And so there's an element there of it works, of it being beneficial to somebody to stay, even if it's not true. That's very interesting to me. And okay, so that kind of segues me into something else, into another question. We talked about the spiritual element. We talked about the membership element. Tell me about the money. How do they stay with, I mean, this is low membership. If you're talking about a rich religion and you're trying to get rich, and that was actually something L. Ron Hubbard said, and knew how to work that. Do they do tithes? How does the leadership get paid in that regard? And then after that, it segues me into asking about cults, like the cultish nature of this religion, because they will track you down, like if you try to leave. And I want to ask you about that, because I think that these two kind of go together. Yeah, take it from there. Let me know what you know about that.
Yeah, so one clarification, celebrities and regular members aren't the same. So
Okay.
celebrities will stay because they found a place, right? And they're treated well. Regular members will stay because they're in a high control group that won't let them leave. And it's really hard for regular members to exit stage left, so to
So
speak.
Leah Remini was one of the celebrities that
Yes.
tried to leave, and it was really tough for her as
Right.
well. Yeah, so yeah, tell me more.
It was easier for Leah to leave, but thankfully she's using her celebrity status to help other people leave. You mentioned Leah. So Leah and a guy named Mike Rinder created a show on A&E called The Aftermath, Scientology and the Aftermath. And it was several seasons long, and they went into really great detail about, I mean, there are several episodes on the money, but also on their beliefs and what auditing is and what the SeaOrg is, which I'll define in a second. And Leah, the way that she left, I mean, she really just was able to leave. They kind of gave her a hard time, but she was able to leave. Mike Rinder, on the other hand, who was a regular guy, a higher up in Scientology, but frankly not a celebrity like Leah, he's just had a heck of a time. And has experienced some really awful things at the hands of Scientology and David Miscavige in particular. David Miscavige, although he is of short stature, very short, he's just about the same size as Tom Cruise, he is very mean and doesn't hesitate to beat people up, like if he doesn't agree with what they've done, the work that they've established. And is a scary guy to work for, but even a scarier guy to leave. I read his dad's book. Ron Miscavige wrote a book of his escape from Scientology, and he literally had to escape in the middle of the night from Scientology with his wife and get out, because there was no other way that even David Miscavige's dad could leave without there being a problem. Scientology has been accused of human trafficking. There's active cases against it for that purpose, because people will leave and then they'll be brought back and forced to stay. The people don't get paid very much to be part of Scientology, so they're required to work and participate in the religion. Often they will join something called the SeaOrg or the Sea Organization. In order to join, you have to sign a 1 billion-year contract and dedicate the next 1 billion years of your life to Scientology. Yes. So they believe in reincarnation. They believe that you will come back. They're still waiting for L. Ron Hubbard to come back. They will say that he just discarded his body for further research, but will be returning one day, which is why in that South Park episode, they said that the kid was the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard. They're still waiting for, like, L. Ron Hubbard's office is kept the same way he kept it, and they lay clothes out for him, waiting for him to return so that it's ready for him when he returns. So it's a scary place if you're a regular human, but as cults do, they control you so tightly that you can't leave. That's why, I mean, I don't call a lot of things cults, but that's why I call this particular religion a cult, because there is a leader who is super high control, and he is always right. You can't question him. If you do question him, he'll punish you in really awful ways. There's something called the Rehabilitation Project Force, which if you're a regular human who's a member, if you do something wrong, you are sent to this and you have to do physical labor. I've heard that it's 30 hours on, 3 hours off. So you have to sleep on gross, moldy, wet mattresses, and you eat the trash, basically, that came from other people in Scientology. And then for the higher ups, there was a thing called the Hole, which they covered pretty extensively on The Aftermath. Mike Rinder served some time in the Hole, which is a building that, again, they were fed kind of table scraps and left in their own decay for months and years on end for some of them, not allowed to leave.
Let me ask real quick about the legalities of that. Why has nobody? Huh?
You join, you're signing up for it. You know what you're getting into when you join a religion. This is why so many cults can stay active, is because...
But even if it's like abusive though, do you think that the government would be able to step in, law enforcement be able to step in and say, oh, this is wrong, we need to arrest the people that are breaking the law? How does that work? Because then anybody can start a religion and get away with breaking the law. I mean, how does that work? I mean, is somebody investigating this?
Well, there's a lot of rumors regarding police and whatnot in the LA area, but ultimately you sign up for the religion, you know what you're getting into, and they will say that this is part of their religious beliefs. It's punishment for sinning or doing bad behavior, and that's...
So then the Twin Towers, I mean, that's part of their religious belief. I don't understand that.
I know.
That's so silly to me. I would love to do a little...
Scientology is basically untouchable at this point, as long as it has religious status with the IRS.
It sounds like they know that. But
of course they do. That's one of the reasons why they wanted it. It wasn't just money. I think David Miscavige continued to push so intensely for this IRS exemption after L. Ron Hubbard died, not just for money, but for control.
But that still doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if then anybody could start a religion, try to get IRS exempt, and be like, oh, we can abuse our members and we can get away with it. It feels like there should be some sort of deal breaker there with that when it comes to human rights.
So a lot of people are not going to bring lawsuits against the religion on themselves. So it's going to be family members who are trying to defend their loved ones. But as long as the loved one is not a child, there's not much you can do. If it's an adult who joined a high control religious group, you can't do anything about it. That person would have to come out, and guess what? Nobody's going to sue Scientology. And if they do, Scientology has a bunch of lawyers and money behind it. And they're not, the well is so deep on this one, because there's just not much a person can do once they've left. And it's really unfortunate because celebrities like Tom Cruise are still members of this horrible group. And as much as some will say, well, he must not know, it's hard for me to believe that he doesn't know what's happening with the amount of time that he spends with David Miscavige. They're very close. It's really hard for me to believe that Tom Cruise doesn't know.
You've done a lot of research on cults. Mm-hmm. What this reminds me of is, I think it was the government in Australia, the Australian Commission, the Jehovah's Witnesses a few years ago got in a lot of trouble, kind of for this, where if there were abuse allegations, sexual abuse, okay, say a female is abused, and she goes to the elders and reports the abuse, where they ask, well, were there any witnesses? Because this is what scripture says, and it's, I mean, they're misusing it to say, to back up this belief, but the idea is that if there's, you know, 2 or 3 witnesses that have seen this crime happen, then we can't do anything about it because there's no witnesses.
Right.
And so this goes on and on and on. It's huge. I'm simplifying it. This is a whole video on itself, I'm sure. But the idea is that, oh, that's what their religion teaches. So women can be abused in this religion. And you see what I'm getting at? Like, that's so silly to me. That I can't with that. And it makes no sense. And the female is like, oh, this is just what our religion teaches, so I have to be okay with it. I knew what I was signing up for. And so for me, I'm thinking about how they got in a lot of trouble for that, as they should. I think Scientology eventually, time is the best tattletale, and the Lord is alive and well, and Judgment Day is coming. And maybe during this interview, I'm turning into an advocate for the people in this religion. This is how I feel about the Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. It's the same feeling of I'm upset with the leaders of those groups because they're the ones that are putting false beliefs, basically mind control on a lot of their members and lying to them in essence. And a lot of them are victims to that. And so I think of that as Scientology in this sense. I didn't realize that all of that was going on, though. I just thought they had some wiggity whack beliefs.
I mean, they do have wiggity whack beliefs, but it goes a lot deeper
They have
than
abusive
most people
beliefs,
know.
it sounds like.
They, when you look at it as far as the money goes, the way they make the money is selling books. So every member is required to buy a certain number of books when they join. And then every time a new version of that book is released, they have to buy the new set. Thousands and thousands of dollars. They also make money on the courses. So they get you in with the $25 one, right? They keep you in another $25 course, a $50 course here, a $50 course there. Then they put you on something called the Bridge to Total Freedom. And this is where you might have heard about the operating Thetan levels or OT levels, where you can achieve superpowers. You can do things like heal yourself. You can be healed from cancer. All of your problems are going to vanish at certain levels. You get special abilities. Maybe you can levitate. There are certain levels that you're reaching, and you have to pay to go up the bridge. And you're trying to get all the way up all the way to the top. And it will cost you to get to the top more than almost $500,000. And regular people like you and me are spending the money. They're taking out credit cards. They're borrowing from family. They're asking for donations from other people. And they're, putting all of their money into Scientology. And that's where the money's going. And it's going to support David Miscavige. It's going to support, they have a Scientology channel that is on, 24 hours a day. They advertise on the Super Bowl. I think the thing now, Melissa, is trying to prevent people from joining in the first place. Yeah. Which is why, I even agreed to talk about it, and I've started to agree to talk about Scientology more. I used to avoid it. I've spoken to some people who are somewhat famous who've come out of the religion and asked them, is this going to be a problem for me? Is the church going to come after me? And they might come at me, y'all. I just want to prevent people from joining, because once they're in, it is so hard for them to leave, and their lives are completely uprooted, and they're cut off from their families, and they're told that everybody outside of the religion is a suppressive person, and you can't be around suppressive people because they kill your mojo, and they're going to kill all of the work that you've done to clear yourself. And so my hope is that with more conversations about what's really happening behind the scenes, it's not just Tom Cruise being happy all the time, right? It's what we're looking at behind the scenes and realizing that real people are suffering at the hands of what many people they've called David Miscavige a madman. I think his own father has referred to him as such, or something along those lines. It's really bad, and it's I think people want to know more because it's just so fascinating. But we have to be able to step past this fascination level and be willing to do something about it. Yeah. And my hope is that the more that we talk about it, the more people are willing to stand in the gap to help people who might be considering it. I mean, there are people, Melissa, influencers, who go outside of the places where they are recruiting Scientologists in LA and will literally grab the people that they're recruiting and say, no, you don't want to go in there. So there are people who are physically standing in the gap trying to prevent people from going in. I'm not one of those people because I don't live anywhere near LA. But the more that I can speak about it, I will, because it's just really bad.
Yeah. No, this is so interesting. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. And I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably a lot more we could have gotten into with auditing and how somebody would even reach the level that they need to reach, which sounds impossible. I mean, superhuman powers, it's very, very, sounds like a cult to me. And
I mean, I have some book recommendations if people want to learn more.
Yeah, there will also be more resources too, because I know Cultish has done a few podcasts on this, and I'll leave that in the description. But yes, please give us some resources on this.
You could start with Leah Remini's book, Troublemaker. She does use some expletives and bad words throughout, but please start there. Mike Rinder also wrote a book called A Billion Years. That one came out recently. It's very well done. I actually reviewed it on my Substack because I was like, this is such a good book. Ron Miscavige wrote a book, that's David Miscavige's dad, called Ruthless, and it is about David Miscavige. It's a really informative book. And then there is a book movie duo. It's called Going Clear. The film and the book both have bad words in it. Sorry. But it was written by a journalist who did a deep dive investigation on Scientology. And so Going Clear would be the book. There is a subsequent film that I think is streaming on Netflix that you can watch that's called Going Clear. And it'll get you into kind of what some of the details are. Of course, Aftermath. The Aftermath show is brilliant. They actually did a couple of episodes on the Jehovah's Witnesses as well. So there's lots that you can glean from those from that series too.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you for coming on and telling us all about this and educating us. I know that I'm interested in this as well. I think it goes beyond this is just another religion that we're looking at. It really goes to two things that I find that Christians need to learn more about, which is cults and critical thinking. I think that if we can simultaneously learn about what these people are going through, what they believe, and how this happens, then we will be more mindful about our own beliefs. So is there anything that you want to add before we sign off that maybe we didn't get to, or anything you want to leave my viewers with?
I think we have to be pursuers of truth in all things in our lives. And if we know that there are lies being told about whatever it might be, we should be willing, and I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, be willing to speak truth into the darkness and not just let the lies win. And that goes for all things in all perspectives of life, whether that's religion and going against cults or whatever it may be in culture that we're dealing with. But truth is paramount and should be paramount. And sharing the gospel with the people we love is so important, I think now more than ever. Allowing them to know who Jesus is and how much hope and joy there is to be found in Christ. And so my hope is that people will feel confident to share their faith with people, even if they might get made fun of. Like, there's a risk we take in all the things. But speaking truth is so important, and it's worth that risk.
Amen to that. Thank you, Lindsay, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.